And for quite a while, I couldn't move or talk. I was just sort of floating. And I was in the same unit with the kids who'd been burned. And they were hanging in these rotating slings, sort of like rotisseries or spits. It would turn you around and around so that the burns could be bathed in these cool liquids. Then one day, one of the doctors came to see me and he told me that I would never be able to walk again. And I remember thinking, this guy is crazy. I mean, is he even a doctor? Who knows? Although I couldn't say that or anything else since I couldn't talk. But I was sure he had no idea what he was saying. Of course I was going to walk. I just had to concentrate, keep trying to make contact with my feet and convince them, will them, to move. And the worst thing about this was the volunteers who came every afternoon to read to me. And they'd lean over the bed and they'd say, "Hello, Laurie," really enunciating every word as if I'd also gone deaf. And they'd open the book. So, where were we? Oh yes. The gray rabbit was hopping down the road. And guess where he went? Well, nobody knows. The farmer doesn't know. The farmer's wife doesn't know. The farmer's son doesn't know. And so on and so on. And nobody knew where the rabbit had gone. But just about everybody seemed to care. Now, before this happened, I'd been reading books like Tale of Two Cities and Crime and Punishment. So the gray rabbit stories were kind of a slow torture. Anyway, eventually I did get on my feet. And then for 2 years I wore a huge metal brace. It was sort of like a Frankenstein design. I was basically like a freak. And I got very obsessed with John F. Kennedy because he had back problems too. And he was the president. Much later in my life, when someone would ask what my childhood was like, sometimes I would tell them the story about the hospital, and it was a short way of telling them certain things about myself, and how I'd learned not to trust certain people, and how horrible it was to listen to long, pointless stories like the one about the gray rabbit. But there was always something weird about this telling the story that made me very uneasy, like something was missing. Then one day, when I was in the middle of telling it, I was describing the little rotisseries that the kids were hanging in. And suddenly, it was like I was back in the hospital, just exactly the way it had been. And I remembered the missing part. It was the way the ward sounded at night. It was the sound of all the children crying and screaming. It was the sounds that children make when they're dying. And then I remembered the rest of it. The heavy smell of medicine, the smell of burned skin, and how afraid I was. And the way some of the beds would be empty in the morning. And the way the nurses would never talk about what had happened to these kids. They'd just go on making beds, cleaning up around the ward. And so the thing about this story was that actually I'd only told the part about myself. And I'd forgotten the rest of it. I'd cleaned it up, just like the nurses said. And that's That's what I think is the creepiest thing about stories. You get to the point you're making, usually about yourself or something you've learned. And you get your story, and you hold on to it. And every time you tell it, you forget it more.